Welcome to Devotionary, where we make the Bible accessible and applicable. Everyone loves the story of David and Goliath, because almost everyone has a heart for the underdog. That's why all the Rocky movies have been so popular for so long. It's why we love to see the outgunned and outmanned armies of the Alliance get the upper hand over the Imperial forces in every Star Wars movie. We like seeing the little guy win. We prefer to watch the neighborhood bully get his clock cleaned by the little kid with the thick glasses and a mean right hook. But we need to be careful that we don't turn the story of David and Goliath into some kind of moralistic story about victories over the bullies of life. Yes, David was way out of his league when he stepped onto the field of battle with Goliath. But the whole point of this story is that the battle was not up to David in the first place. It was about the enemies of God getting what they deserved from God. The battle was the Lord's, and it had been all along. God had been willing to bring victory if anyone would simply believe that he could. And David was the one who put his trust in God. It wasn't about David's sling and 5 smooth stones. It was about the power of God bringing victory over the enemies of God through a willing servant of God. As usual, it would be so easy to make this passage about David. And while he is the central character of the narrative, he's far from the central focus. Even David himself will not allow us to make him the leading man. He goes out of his way to place the attention where it rightly belongs, on God. Repeatedly, the author, Samuel, draws the reader's attention to the words of David as he stands to face the giant, Goliath. I come to you in the name of the Lord of heaven's armies, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. 1 Samuel 17, verse 45. Today the Lord will conquer you. 1 Samuel 17, verse 46. And the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. 1 Samuel 17, verse 46b. And everyone assembled here will know that the Lord rescues his people. 1 Samuel 17, verse 47a. This is the Lord's battle, and he will give you to us. 1 Samuel 17, verse 47b. It's so easy for us to focus on David, his sling, and the 5 smooth stones. We could even spend time trying to conjecture why he chose 5 stones when only 1 was needed. Was this a sign of a lack of faith? But while the details provided to us by Samuel are important, we should never allow them to overshadow what's going on in the narrative. David, the man after God's own heart, who has been anointed to be the next king of Israel, has stepped into a situation where he's found the armies of Israel in an awkward stalemate with the Philistines. They have been offered a challenge by the Philistine champion to send out a warrior to do battle with them, man to man. But Saul, who has been rejected by God as king, is gripped by fear and unwilling to do what needs to be done. He has no faith in himself or his God, and his lack of faith in God was not a recent development. Early on in Saul's reign, Samuel had warned the people of Israel, and when you saw that Nahash, the king of the Ammonites, came against you, you said to me, No, but a king shall reign over us, when the Lord your God was your king. And now behold, the king whom you have chosen, for whom you have asked, behold, the Lord has set a king over you. If you will fear the Lord, and serve him, and obey his voice, and not rebel against the commandment of the Lord, and if both you and the king who reigns over you will follow the Lord your God, it will be well. But if you will not obey the voice of the Lord, but rebel against the commandment of the Lord, then the hand of the Lord will be against you and your king. 1 Samuel 12, verses 12 through 15. Several years later, Saul found himself in a predicament. The Philistines had gathered to do battle with the Israelites. 30,000 chariots and 6,000 horsemen, and troops like the sand on the seashore in multitude. 1 Samuel 13, verse 5. And Saul's crack troops scattered when they heard the news. When the men of Israel saw that they were in trouble, for the people were hard pressed, the people hid themselves in caves and in holes and in rocks and in tombs and in cisterns. 1 Samuel 13, verse 6. The soldiers who remained with Saul were petrified at the prospect of having to face the Philistines. And this was after Jonathan, Saul's son, had just defeated the Philistines in a battle. Saul had been instructed by Samuel to go to Gilgal and to wait 7 days. On the 7th day, Saul became anxious because the prophet had not shown up. So he decided to do the prophet's job and offer a burnt offering to God. But as soon as he had done so, Samuel arrived and expressed his anger with Saul at his impetuosity and disobedience. "You have done foolishly. You have not kept the command of the Lord your God, with which he commanded you. For then the Lord would have established your kingdom over Israel forever. But now your kingdom shall not continue. The Lord has sought out a man after his own heart, and the Lord has commanded him to be prince over his people, because you have not kept what the Lord commanded you." 1 Samuel 13, verses 13 through 14. Saul lacked faith in God. When confronted with a desperate situation, he took matters into his own hands. Yes, he offered a sacrifice to God, but he did it more out of a sense of superstition or as a form of good luck than anything else. Like rubbing a rabbit's foot, Saul was hoping that offering a burnt offering to God would somehow obligate him to provide victory. But notice the difference between his actions and those of David. David faced the very same enemy, the Philistines, and he was greatly outmanned, a shepherd boy facing a well-trained Philistine champion. But unlike Saul, David was fully confident in the face of overwhelming odds because he wasn't focusing on himself, but on God. This wasn't going to be his battle, but the Lord's. And the victory that was coming would not be his doing, but God's. The Philistines were not his enemies, but God's. And the taunts and jeers of Goliath weren't really directed at David, but against God. Whether Goliath realized it or not, he had defied the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, and now he was going to have to face the consequences. The real lesson here is that the battle between the enemies of God and the people of God is always the Lord's battle. Yes, we may have to get involved, but our participation is not what guarantees the victory. David's sling and stone were used by God to defeat Goliath, but they were not the primary cause of victory. God was, and he always is. When the people of Judah had faced the Moabites and Ammonites, God had said to them, "Do not be afraid and do not be dismayed at this great horde, for the battle is not yours, but God's. Tomorrow go down against them. Behold, they will come up by the ascent of Ziz. You will find them at the end of the valley, east of the wilderness of Jeruel. You will not need to fight in this battle. Stand firm, hold your position, and see the salvation of the Lord on your behalf, O Judah and Jerusalem. Do not be afraid and do not be dismayed. Tomorrow go out against him, and the Lord will be with you." 2 Chronicles 20, verses 15 through 17. Years later, when the people of Judah faced the Assyrians, King Hezekiah encouraged them with these words, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or dismayed before the king of Assyria and all the horde that is with him, for there are more with us than with him. With him is an arm of flesh, but with us is the Lord our God, to help us and to fight our battles." 2 Chronicles 32, verses 7 through 8. David understood that this was far more than just another battle. They were being confronted by the enemies of God, and as the people of God, they had an obligation to place their faith in the superiority of the Lord of heaven's armies. This wasn't about a shepherd boy facing a well-armed, well-trained soldier. This was about the God of Israel doing battle with those who would defy his name and his honor. And David had all the confidence in the world that his God could snatch victory out of the jaws of defeat, using a shepherd boy, a sling, and a few smooth stones.